hoping. So why is it vertically integrated? Because you usually will not have good vendors for anything, right? Look at the original computer industry before, Apple and Microsoft popped up. With the IBMs and those guys, it was very vertically integrated. Like the same guy who was making the computer, made the chips, made the microprocessors, put the entire system together, made the word processor for it, did the sales, like he owned the entire chain, right? Why? Because he really wanted to? Probably not, but because there was no good Intel, there was no good Microsoft, there was no good Dell out there at that point. So at the start of a new industry, things are always vertically integrated. And the EV industry, in our view, wasn't going to buck this trend in a big way. And this was important because everybody, like automotive industry is almost like the mother of all industries, which means players who exist here are not new upcoming upstarts. They are very, very, very established, entrenched players, right? This means 99.999% of the market is with people who are already in the old world, which is very horizontally integrated. So the only way those guys will look at a problem, so if a GM had to build this product, not this product, if a GM has to look at building an electric vehicle, its first instinct is to say, hey, find me a battery guy, get me a relationship with Panasonic, get me a relationship with Bosch for the motor, get Continental to do this, I need NVIDIA to give me the entire electronics, right? Get me all of this, and then we'll talk about a complete product. You get all these really expensive vendors stacked up, they've got really, really mediocre solutions because none of them have any experience in selling any of their wares with an actual OEM till date, right? It's a completely new industry. That's not true, by the way, when you do a petrol vehicle. Let's say if you were to build a petrol car or petrol scooter today, it would be pretty stupid for you to say, hey, I'm going to build my own fuel injection system, right? Because I want to be vertically integrated. Makes no sense. You go to a Bosch will probably have, they will have a fuel injector for you for your application, for your market, with your target usage, with your exact category of the vehicle, right? That's not true when you buy a battery pack today. So which means when a GM would stack up all these vendors, they would have all these guys who have no experience. And because they're doing the R&D for the first time, they would have massive overheads attached to it. They would do the entire math and end up concluding, you know what? We are looking at an industry where the battery prices are about $600 to $700 per kilowatt hour. So, conclusion, electric vehicles don't make sense, right? Everybody was concluding the same thing, except folks like Tesla, and except very early stage startups like us, who looked at the math and said, what are you guys saying? Like, you can build this for like $300, and with a trend line which is going to $150 like in the next few years itself. Why are you guys still talking about $600? Why are you talking about motors which will cost you 30, 40, 50K for a two-wheeler? That makes no sense. It should probably be 5x lower. And it is available. You probably, like, the technology is all there. If you think from, really the fundamentals of what goes in, it's not that expensive. So anyways, how this put together meant, we ended up concluding that vendors are a pretty bad idea to work with at this point of the industry. The only way to pull this off is to be vertically integrated. So we ended up saying, let's bring all the technology in-house. Making this a much longer effort, increasing our gestation period to get the first product out, but then giving us a lot more control. So we kept bringing pieces in, and hired the first 12 people, ran for it for a year, built the first prototype. Along the way, on the large story, we realized that more than for the customer, as far as the customer is concerned, more than this story, what's actually more exciting is the fact that the vehicle can be intelligent. And electric vehicles lend themselves very well to being an intelligent vehicle. I can maybe talk more about it, but you guys should probably tell me if that makes sense for this class, right? So anyways, ended up concluding that and starting working on dashboards and a whole lot of software. Build the first product out, and by about October 2014, we're ready to raise our next round of funding. This came from Sachin and Mini Bansal of Flipkart, who made a fairly big bet on our approach and the technology, and invested $1 million in. Then in about March 2015, we raised a Series A. This was from Tiger Global for about $12 million, which became the first real big money that came into the system and allowed us to now actually talk about taking something to production, actually talk about setting up our distribution, setting up marketing, all of that. And a few months back, we closed a Series B with Hero MotoCorp for $30 million, which now hopefully will actually get us to production sometime in early 2018. And
Hey Tarun, so my question is about the fact that you mentioned that electric vehicles and electric scooter can be smart.
Yes.
So how did you get that insight, and when did you get that insight? Because it's a very important insight to actually get into this industry right now. If you have simply an electric engine and you just sell it as an electric scooter, that makes a little bit lesser sense than you are selling a smart electric vehicle. Right. So how did you get that?
Right, like I should have probably actually talked more about it. So I don't think we had a very clear reasoning set when we went down this path, but now I can probably crystallize those thoughts better. So typically, and especially in the industry that we are getting into, this is like, let's say when Facebook started, the entire social media business was actually pretty small, wasn't super entrenched in the sense that it's not like something which was already defined for the last 50 years with massive incumbents worth hundreds of billions dollars of sales. That's not true in our case. So it's very important to, as a new company, to remember that you actually have certain limitations, right? So it would be, for example, a little too ambitious for us to say that we can, I'll get to your question, right? Let me just take a slight detour to get there. It would be a little too ambitious for us to say that, hey, we will have a better quality than a Honda, the day we start our first production. Or we'll have a better distribution or a better cost structure than a Hero with our first product line. Or we'll have a better product portfolio than some other established company that has been there for 50 years. What I'm trying to say is, our thought here was that we don't want to compete on parameters that existing incumbents are already very good at, right? Or that existing incumbents are already competing on. Which means if you can just pick up a brochure of your existing competition, right? Everything that they're talking about there, you should probably blank out all of that, right? And at least this was our thought. And not ideally talk about any of that, right? So what would a bike or a scooter company talk about today? They would talk about, and I know I'm going again for a written here, but let's bear with me. They would talk about speed. They would talk, if it's a bike. They would talk about performance if it's a bike. If it's a scooter, they would talk about comfort. They would talk about storage capacity. They would probably talk about mileage, right? They would talk about financing options. They would talk about number of maintenance, number of touch points that they exist in the country, 5,000 touch points, right? You're totally covered. Our conclusion was, and this is a little later after we got started, and you actually spend more and more time thinking about this, we shouldn't make any of that. Well, we have to talk about all of that, but that none of those points can be our first USP. This means we need a completely fresh USP. We need something that these guys are not talking about in their brochures, right? We need something that hence these guys are not going to be very good at fundamentally, right? Can they catch up on that parameter? Yes. Like if they have money, eventually they will probably try and catch up. But today they're not already very good at it, which means suddenly you level the playing field, right? You are not now playing a catch-up game. You started with it, and then now they have to catch up with you. That's like your tiny foot in the door to actually be ahead of massive incumbents. So it then basically ended up meaning we realized that, hey, now the Indian companies seem to be talking about a smart vehicle. They don't seem to be taking intelligence or data collection or monitoring or remote diagnostics really seriously, right? These are probably smart tick boxes that they have on the thing that they just tick mark and move ahead, right? Digital dashboard. What that means is like nothing. It's still the same speed shown the same way. Like nothing changed there. Remote diagnostics is really not there. It's just something to say probably. If we make that a key part of a user experience and actually center the entire vehicle's story around that pitch, we are now no longer suddenly another scooter out there, right? Compared on the same parameters. We're now a smart scooter. That means we should be priced differently. We should be looked at differently. The way you will think about the reason you will own this, the target customers who will own it, will have not too much to compare this on. And that's where you want to be as a startup. So that's the reason why it actually became pretty easy for us to say that hence, hey, this got to be a smart vehicle. How electric lent itself well, you can do a lot of things, a lot of stuff that we're doing today, even a petrol scooter, but just so much extra cost, right? If you want to add something which will control performance, it's in an electric vehicle, it's literally a little bit of software, right? Because a little bit of firmware, because all the hardware is usually in place to control the motor, control the controller, all of that. With an engine, it's not so easy. You'll have to add a whole bunch of complicated hardware on top of it, so it won't come naturally to it. So that's why it became really easy for us to do it, and that's the reason why we did it. Makes sense?
But I had a doubt over here. You said that you found out this USP of that other competitors are actually on the ground playing into, but rather something that is actually unique. But did you realize it after getting your funds? Because then it would make you were actually just trying things.
No, again, very good question, sorry. So I'm not a big fan of pivots or of changing a business model on the go, right? I think lean startups is probably one of those terms which are interpreted a little wrongly to mean that, we